Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds from the past week, and then we have a main topic that we're going to talk about, as well as some Kickstarters and a licensee spotlight that we do every week, showcasing either a Savage Ace or a Savage Swag licensee. But first, we're going to talk about the news and talk about the newsletter. Later today, we are going to be talking about the Savage Worlds wound system, and so I'd love to hear from your comments down below what you like and dislike about the Savage Worlds wound system, and also the Savage Worlds injury system. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and talk about that. So please do. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to move that banner real quick. I'm going over to our little newsletter here. It's a short newsletter this week. There's not much going on. But the main thing is that there is a crowdfunder, a backer kit, Kickstarter, whatever you call it, for the Deadlands Lost Colony Mad World campaign. It's over on backer kit. You can go ahead and take a look at the link down below. That's in the description. And there is an exclusive preview on the drive-through RPG. If you want to take a look at that, go ahead and do so. It's a sneak peek of the ground grinder. A vehicle that is in this particular version of Deadlands Lost Colony. So take a look at that. I ended up backing at the I think it's like the roundup tier where you get everything. So I will be getting the Lost Colony box set on top of the Maw of Oblivion, I believe it's what it's called, Maw of Oblivion adventure, and then also this adventure. So just going to be adding to my collection here. I decided I was going to spend a little bit of those that Google AdSense money to do that. All right, so let's go here. Going down here this week on Sagittarius Media Roundup, there's going to be a live stream on Thursday for the final from 7 to 8 for the final hour of the Kickstarter. So if you are the backer kit, if you want to jump on that, go ahead and do that now. I'd recommend because it is a really good deal. If you haven't done any Lost Colony stuff, I'm getting a little ahead of myself because it is being mentioned later in the Kickstarter section. But there is a live stream going on there. Talk to Shane. Probably. Well, I'm not sure who's going to be a part of it, but Shane tends to be a part of it. So yeah, just see like the last 60 minutes and see where things end up. That evening afterwards, immediately afterwards on Savage Universe, there's going to be a interview with John Stevens, who is from the Metamorphic Digitals team doing the 9 Worlds Jumpstart and their work on 9 Worlds. 9 Worlds is a cross between Cyberpunk and Vikings. So there's been a lot of genre mashing in DTRPGs lately, and this one's a very interesting one, I think. Vikings and Cyberpunk. So I'm super curious about that. I've already jumped. I think I jumped on the Jumpstart already, and hopefully we'll have them on at some point whenever they get ready to do their Kickstarter for this product. I don't tend to do stuff for Jumpstarts. I'm happy to do so if people want to, but I tend to just reach out to people if they don't reach out to me already for like Kickstarters and stuff. So if they are watching and they want to do anything, let me know. Happy to have you on. Let's see here. So that's that one thing. Foundry VTT version 13 is coming, and stuff that you need to know. So version 13 is in the works. This is just for Foundry, not like for Savage Worlds specifically, but because of that, there's a few things that are going to be being updated for Suede and for Savage Worlds, and so there is going to be some, because there's some things being changed in the Foundry itself. They're going to be updating some of the packages for Savage Worlds modules for Foundry as well. So the team that they're using, which I believe is the Metamorphic Digital team themselves, will be also working on this Suede first, and then they'll move on to other premium modules. So get ready for that. And then we just have our crowdfunding report. U.S. shipping is being done for Science Fiction Companion. I've already got mine. I know JM got his, and he's supposed to be one of the last people to get his copy. So most U.S. stuff should be out. Rest of the world, there should be some more coming soon. So look for that. If you have not, this is not on this list, but if you should have gotten, probably by now, a message about the Kickstarter for shipping for the Kickstarter for the Solomon Kane RPG. So get ready for that. That's coming. My copy is coming this Friday, so I'm likely going to be doing a live stream this Friday to talk about the Solomon Kane RPG and all of the books. And I actually got the RPG vault as well, so I'll be showing out the minis and stuff as well. So I'm super excited about that. So look forward to that. And then as far as other things from Pinnacle, the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds booster campaign, that the files will deliver. So hopefully that means that shipping can happen soon. Once they get like stuff printed and stuff. The rest reprint should be delivered as far as digital stuff. Deadlands at Bomb Northwest, and then Deadlands Lost Colony is happening currently. So let's all get really excited about that. So from there, let's go ahead and switch back to here. For other news, I don't have anything big. There is a GM sale that's happening over on the DTRPG site, and a lot of Savage products are for sale. I don't know when the end date is for that, but there is should be a link down below, I believe, for that. Kickstarters. So yeah, the Deadlands Lost Colony Mad World Kickstarter ends this Thursday, March 13th. So if you're interested in Lost Colony and you want to get a hold of it, do it now. There's some great deals there to get really into the get into it, right? So, and then coming Tuesday, March 25th, is the Vermilium, the Sick and the Dead. This is from blanking the name, White Witch Games. There we go. And the Vermilium setting, I really enjoy it. Unfortunately have not run Vermilium yet, but I really enjoy the Vermilium setting, so I highly recommend checking this out. I'm gonna check out this one as well. Now I'm just gonna sit down here. And then also coming Tuesday, March 25th, is the Han Cluster role-playing game for Savage Worlds. There is a link down to the backer kit for Tracy, and the plan is to have Tracy on at some point to talk about this Kickstarter. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. We're still working on that, but we will have Tracy on to talk about it soon, hopefully, as long as everything works out. And then coming Tuesday, April 1st, there's something on this image, unfortunately, it tells you what this is, but Starbreaker Space Marines for Star Anvil Studios will be coming April 1st. So that's the current tentative date, I believe. And the goal right now is to have Star Anvil on that night to talk about Starbreaker. We're going to have a slightly later stream because Brandon has to get off work and everything. So we're going to do it at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so that should work out for them. So perfect. Look forward to that. And I'm super excited about the Starbreaker stuff. I haven't ordered my copy yet for Starbreaker. I'm still going to get a few more funds for DTRPG. And just kind of a shout out is, if you guys want to support the channel, if you are buying anything from DTRPG, using one of my affiliate codes down below does help me. It does not take anything away from any of the people, any of the publishers. It actually takes a cut out of the 30% that DTRPG takes in order to give me some like affiliate marketing stuff. So I have some stuff down below for everything else. But even if you don't buy those particular products, it does help me get some funds so I can buy more Essentials products to like read through them and showcase them and everything. So just kind of heads up there. Appreciate all of your support, everyone. And lastly, I want to mention our ACE licensee spotlight / swag licensee spotlight. We go back and forth between the two because there's some great swag licensees and some great ACE licensees. And this month, it is Battlelords. I have recently did a video about or a live stream about how crunchy Savage Worlds is. And when it comes to being crunchy, I was talking to JM about this recently, and JM Defuggy over at Savage Universe. And when we talk about Savage Worlds and kind of crunchiness and everything, we probably put, you had different things like core Savage Worlds, even some core Savage Worlds can be like brought down to like even simpler. And then you have like things like Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, a little bit crunchier than core Savage. And then you have things like Rifts and Battlelords. Battlelords is a very crunchy, it has a lot of like space stuff going on. Your character races themselves, the species themselves, are extremely detailed and have a lot of hindrances, as well as a lot of edges as well. Like the races themselves alone are almost a novice character in themselves. So I think like even like more than that. And then on top of that, you have a lot of really cool equipment, and you have mechs and a whole bunch of other really cool things. So if you're looking for a really cool sci-fi gritty Savage Worlds game, but for some reason you're not into Rifts, like me personally, Rifts just doesn't appeal to me for some reason. I'm not sure why. Probably because I just can't play it. Then check out Battlelords for Savage Worlds. These guys have been on the stream before. We've talked about these products, and these products are very nice. They are, I'll say, they're not in the size I prefer. I really like the Savage Worlds book size. This means that there's more room on my table. But these books are jam-packed with details and very well laid out for making everything super easy to find. And there's a lot of really cool artwork. partially because Battlelords has its own system as well, on top of there being a Savage Worlds version. But nevertheless, I think you should check out Battlelords. It is a really cool system and some really done by some really cool people. So if you're interested in a sci-fi game with really greedy details, go take a look at this. Right. So before I'm gonna jump in, I see some questions in here that I want to address before we jump into our main topic, which is about. Let me go and stop the screen share here. Which is about the wound system. Before I do that, I do some questions here. First, I want to say, hey, Chris says that he just played his first game of Sway with friends, and he's ready to jump ship from Chevy. Welcome to the crowd. As Hamster of Doom says, welcome, Chris. Glad you had fun. Savage Worlds is my personal favorite. I also kind of basically abandoned 5e. I do play in a once a month 5e game with some friends, and I still find that 5e is the system that everyone knows because it's the system, right? And so I still play in it just because I have some friends. If I could convince them to play Savage Worlds instead, I would. It's funny though. In my church, we had 3 people who are like really into RPGs. I mean, a lot of people who are into RPGs in general, but 3 people who are like actively in different communities of RPGs. I have one friend who's really into Cairn and more like OSR type games. One friend who's really into Pathfinder 3.5, and then there's myself who's into Savage Worlds. So we have like very different tastes in what we really want from an RPG, but we all kind of come in with 5e just because everyone knows it. Everyone can kind of agree to it. That being said, I haven't gotten to play Savage Worlds yet. I've played Cairn, I've played Pathfinder first edition, so like I feel like it's their turn to play Savage Worlds just because like I've played their games, they should play my game, so maybe we can get them to do that. Let's see here. We have some good comments about some several stuff, the wound system, so we'll get into that in a moment. Venko, are we talking about gritty wounds as well? I am going to be talking about the gritty damage rules as well, so yes. So I am talking about that. I will be bringing that up. More stuff with that. Caveman asks, Goose, ever done a live stream of actual play? So technically, yes, I have done actual plays before. I don't think in Savage Worlds, but there was a previous attempt at a Twitch stream. A little background history here before we get into the main topic is that I actually started this channel out as something called Synod of Dice. I was trying to do like a play on like the Synod of Trent and the Synod of Nicaea, all the different synods that have happened that's the Council of Nicaea. That's what I'm thinking. Like different synods in our domination. We have a top level government body called the Synod, and so it's doing like this little thing there. But in that live stream, we would switch between game systems. We did a Dread game, we did a 5e game. I think we did a Call of Cthulhu game. Wasn't really properly done very well, and so I kind of scrapped it, and then I changed this over into a Savage Worlds channel, rebranded, kind of removed all the previous videos, or at least hid them, I think is what I did. And then so as far as future endeavors, I would like to do at some point some sort of Savage Worlds actual play. It won't be like a long going campaign. It would be like one shots of different systems, because guess what, I have so many of like things like this and things like this, where there's a bunch of systems or different Savage Worlds settings that I would love to play but I haven't gotten to yet. So that's what it'd be like one shots, not like ongoing games. And yes, Lily Blair is in the chat. Synod Dice, my first game ever. Yeah, so Lily was part of that. It is no longer available, at least on the channel. I think it might still be available on the Synod Dice Twitch streams, but yeah. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, let's hear. Hampshire saying, "Oh, okay, I'll play." I think this says an implicit invite. Look, the problem with actual plays right now is that I just gotta find the time to set up a time for me to record them, like do them, record them. And personally, I really like actual plays that are in person. Like when I listen to actual plays that are online, I can't get into it. I actually haven't listened to the last season of Wildcards ETU because of COVID, they had to go to an online, and I couldn't handle the change in voice and the way that they kind of addressed each other. And I love the way they address each other in person. So like part of me wants to do an in-person with a really good audio, and when I did the Synod Dice thing, the audio was not there. So I just need to figure out how to get audio working properly and everything. But yes, Lily Blair is correct. So many games, so little time to play. Uh, I'll say Hamster. John, I was definitely watching. Like I was keeping up at that point. I got to the point where I was keeping up with the story, and then it was definitely ETU that had to end. That was like the last season of ETU that was, or like maybe I think maybe, not sure the beginning of the last season, but maybe like somewhere in the middle of the last season. They had to do a switch. I just had a hard time with it. They definitely did not end ETU in person. I don't think. And I think I've talked to I can't remember his name right now. Nope, name's escaping me. Sorry, man. About that, and yeah, it just wasn't an ideal situation because COVID was not ideal in general. Anyways, with all that said, if you're just joining us, I am Goose. This is Savage Goose, where we talk about Savage Worlds, and today we're going to talk about the wound system. So I'm gonna put up a little banner here. Just again, what do you like and dislike about Savage Worlds wounds? And I'm gonna add in there wounds and injuries as well. And we're gonna be talking about some details there. Peter over at Tales from Elsewhere, he's a game designer. He's making a system called Tales from Elsewhere, where there's different tales from elsewhere. In a sense, he's only done one setting so far. It's a very like a Clock World Western-esque setting, and I think my understanding is that he plans on making this into like a multiple settings, so kind of more of a sandbox game. He's played Savage Worlds. I'm on his Discord. I've talked to him. I've watched his videos, and they've been the inspiration for many videos of me reflecting on Savage Worlds and how Savage Worlds does things. And so once again, I am making a video talking about his discussion about injuries and wound systems in tabletop role-playing games. And so I want to talk about that in the context of Savage Worlds. And he poses 3 questions that you are to ask yourself as a game designer. I'm a game designer. I'm just going to be looking at these questions from a context of a Savage Worlds person who really loves Savage Worlds, and kind of like looking how Savage Worlds answers these questions, and basically just talk about these 3 questions and kind of go through some like nuances for Savage Worlds and how they apply to this. To give a kind of like a premise, though, the idea is that there's a lot of tabletop role-playing games who are going away from the wound system. They're moving towards more of an injury system. Sorry, they're going away from the hit point system. Apologies. They're going away from the hit point system and going more towards a injury-like system. And how do game designers kind of approach this? Well, Savage Worlds has been doing something not exactly hit points for quite some time. And he actually told me that he was considering mentioning Savage Worlds in this video, and then he didn't. And I'm like, you know, you could at least mentioned it. I can still do this video, even if you didn't mention it. But either way, check out his channel, Tales from Elsewhere. I highly recommend it. So the first question that he asked in his video is, are injuries the primary or secondary method of tracking health? In a lot of systems, there's several systems out there where there are ways you can get injuries that is secondary to some sort of other system for tracking health, like a hit point system. And there's been so many different ways to do injuries inside of hit point based systems. I've seen people do homebrew rules for different ways to do it inside of D&D, for example. And even in 4E, they had a sort of a thing about injuries where, like, you know, the bloody mechanic where if you're below half health, you start triggering new abilities or anything based on the bloody condition. And it could be like a negative thing or it could be a positive thing. Usually it's a positive thing. Kind of giving you a way to avoid kind of the third question, but we'll get to that later. Now, Savage Worlds, kind of to start out, I should kind of back up before we get into too much. In the video, Peter, I'm not sure if Pete's okay with Peter, I'm gonna call you Peter because I don't know if you're okay with me calling you Pete, uses wounds and injuries pretty much interchangeably. Like, wounds and injuries are essentially the same thing. But in Savage Worlds, injuries and wounds are two very different things, right? If you're playing Savage Worlds, you're probably familiar with the wound system and you're familiar with how the wounds work. And just kind of go over it for you if you're not familiar. In Savage Worlds, when you hit someone, you roll your damage, and it's a point value, and you compare it against someone's toughness. So if you roll 9 damage and someone has a toughness of 5, you meet their toughness, and because you get what's called a raise, which is 4 points above their toughness score, you cause a wound, and that wound inflicts a penalty to that character. So for every every wound that your character has, you take a -1 to all of your rolls. Now, in Savage Worlds, that it's hard to say if that's like does it change the math? Yes. And if I do a full video on this, I'll probably include some of the math statistics on like what changes there when it comes to wounds, like how much the math changes. Because you don't roll d20s in this game, you roll your dice, which depending on which one you have, you have d4, d6, d8, d10, d12, etc. And that vastly changes the math that you do on like how likely it is for you to succeed on something based on like your one wound. But nevertheless, if your character takes a wound, you have a -1 penalty to everything that you do. And that's one of the things I love about Savage Worlds is that there is this, I'm going to call it, I think of wounds as kind of like some sort of hybrid approach. Generally speaking, all characters can only take 4 wounds, no matter how advanced they are. There's no increase to the amount of wounds you can take. And generally speaking, you just take 4 wounds. I say generally because there is some like minute rules about like wounds and stuff that we're not going to worry about right now. But generally speaking, you can take up, once you take your 4th wound, you are incapacitated. But those first 3 wounds give you penalties, -1, -2, and -3. And those are akin in a sense to hit points, but they have real consequences, but not consequences that are necessarily descriptive of like bigger things like the injury system. Which are gained when you're incapacitated, generally speaking. So damage results in wounds, and it's pretty straightforward. One of the things I like about the Savage Worlds wound system is that it is simple. It is, you take a wound, cool, there's a consequence. It's just a -1 to everything you do. Just take a -1 to everything you do. No, okay, you got hurt. Okay, let's roll on an injury. Now that being said, let's talk about injuries. Injuries, generally speaking, happen when you become incapacitated. So when you're knocked down to 4 wounds, incapacitated via wounds, I should say. Where incapacitated via wounds, you take an injury, you actually roll a d6 to determine how you're injured. Is it, an arm? Is it your vitals? Is it injury to the head? Is it injury to your legs? And those injuries can, depending on your save on the incapacitation roll, can either be a hindrance for temporarily until your wounds are healed. They could be a permanent hindrance, like a one-arm hindrance, or maybe a decrease of decrease of one of your attributes, something like that. And so stuff like that. Now there is a exception for a system called gritty damage rules, which ties wounds to injuries, where it says essentially every time you take a wound, you also gain an injury, and then that injury goes away whenever that wound is healed. And that's separate from your incapacitation injury, which could be permanent. That's just kind of simple version. If you take multiple wounds, you still only take 1 injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I personally love injuries. I love that there's a consequence for becoming incapacitated. Assuming you don't die, right? Assuming you don't die, there's still a consequence, whether it be a temporary consequence or a long-term consequence. And I think a lot of players or a lot of people feel, I had one player in one of my games I ran who was like, okay, well, the character lost an arm permanently. And like, okay, well, I guess it's time to retire this character. And it's like, no, why would you retire it? You should just keep playing the character. And he says, well, yeah, he's got 1 arm. He's not going to be able to do anything. And the nice part about Savage Worlds, in my opinion, is that this hindrance that he got, this one-armed hindrance, is akin to a hindrance that you can get inside Savage Worlds at character creation. You can, at character creation, say, my character only has 1 arm. And that's so, and that's just the way your character is. And one of the things I love about the Savage Worlds injury system is that basically it's saying, like, you're now just the same as someone else who could be in your party who also has 1 arm. This is a character that you could have started out with. Now, you may have additional hindrances, and also I have players who have taken on more hindrances than they could benefit from, right? They've taken more than 4 points of hindrances because they just wanted to take those hindrances for flavor purposes. Savage Worlds is not built on this idea of game balance in a sense like, oh, your character should be as strong, as powerful as mine, because honestly, the way the mechanics work doesn't really work out that way. And some characters are just better at certain things than other characters are. So that's one of the things I love about the hindrance system, is that it's essentially the same thing as the injury system. Is that it's basically like gaining another hindrance, and nothing like too crazy. And usually they can, those can be healed in some way. So that's the wound system. That's the injury system. And so the question is, are the injuries the primary? Let me pull this question up real quick. Are the injuries a primary or secondary method of tracking health? It is. The wound system is the primary system of tracking health, and the injuries are either primary and either tied to the primary, or they're a secondary when becoming incapacitated. So that kind of answers that first question. The second question is, are wounds symmetrical between players and enemies? And to answer the question for Savage Worlds, generally speaking, the answer is yes. Wound system works for non-player characters and player characters. Now, I say like I'm hesitant to say like yes completely, because generally speaking, the answer is yes. They both, you do damage to them with same way you go against toughness, everything like that's the same. And even extras use the same system. But the nice part about Savage Worlds is there is a system for extras. Extras are characters that don't really matter. They're just kind of throwaway characters. They're not the big boss. They're not like the lieutenant to the boss. They're not someone like big and commanding who has a name. They're just like the flukes, or the guy, the goons that the big bad guy controls. They don't matter. And the characters that don't matter, as soon as you do one wound to them, they're gone. They're dead. You generally speaking don't roll to find out, wait, do they have an injury? You generally don't roll to see if they go if they die immediately, or if they just go incapacitated and bleeding out. They just die after one wound. Now there are some nuances to that. There is some rules inside the game that allow for what's called a resilient extras, or very resilient extras. Personally, I'm not a big fan of those, because one of the things I love about extras is that you take one wound and they're gone. There's no bookkeeping. I don't need to keep track of wounds for extras. There should be like one, maybe two wild cards in a fight, and those I keep track of the wounds for. But the rest, as soon as they get knocked out, they're done. They're gone. Cool. Don't have to worry about them anymore. So I'm not a big fan of personally of the resilient or the very resilient edges for extras. Some people like to use them for like lieutenants and stuff, like people who are like more important but not super important. And it's like, okay, but they're like, you can give them more wounds, but then also, do they get a wild die then? I'm just like, no. Like personally, if I want a lieutenant, I'm just gonna make them a wild card that's not as strong, and go from there. Right. So as far as answering the question, are wounds symmetrical between players and enemies? Generally speaking, yes. That's the way that the wound system works inside Savage Worlds. And by the way, I do see your guys' comments coming in. I am happy to talk. Just to be clear, Peter Saloom is in the chat. Hey, Peter. Peter Saloom is not the Peter I'm talking about. This is the Peter from Tales from Elsewhere. Two different Peters. But Peter Saloom is also really cool. We have a really cool podcast about designing Savage Worlds encounters. You should check it out. So the last question that Peter from Tales from Elsewhere asks is how to avoid death spirals. And this is something that people have brought up in Savage Worlds before. But, oh, Mikey, this just creates a death spiral. You're giving the players -1s. This makes things worse for the players. And yes and no, I'm going to say. Is -1, -2, -3 a big penalty? Yes. And no. The amount of times players have had like a lot of penalties and either found ways to negate them, because there is plenty of ways to negate penalties in Savage Worlds. Wild attacks, desperate attacks, aiming, all those kind of things. There's lots of ways to kind of negate penalties inside Savage Worlds. And on top of that, like, and then like exploding dice makes things go super smoothly. The amount of times I've had players had significant penalties and still come out with extreme success, it's pretty common, and you're gonna find that amongst a lot of groups. In fact, one of the things people say they don't like about Savage Worlds is that they don't like how swingy the game is. We don't see this as a problem. Those of us who have really adopted a Savage Worlds feeling, a really fond feeling for Savage Worlds, we don't see that as a problem. We see that as like a feature of the game. I work in a software company, and one of our favorite lines is, "It's not a bug, it's a feature." Unfortunately, it's actually also one of our favorite customer quotes. So when we fix a bug, and then it comes like, wait, I was using that bug to do something. It's like, no. But anyways, so we really like the swinginess of Savage Worlds, and that's one of the things I love about Savage Worlds, and it really adds to the pulpy feel. So the penalties for wounds in Savage Worlds, in a sense, are both major and minor. Like they're both yeah, a big part because they do kind of like they skew the math a decent amount, but at the same time, they don't really skew it enough to really warrant significant consequence to certain things, right? The Now injuries, on the other hand, can have some long-lasting consequences. We talked about it already, but again, they just kind of put you on par with someone else. If you get an injury that decreases, say, your spirit die, your vigor die, or your strength die, or whatever, I just put you on par with someone else in your party. Not necessarily that big of a big deal. Might give you a hindrance that someone else in your party already has. And that's again one of the reasons why I love the wound hindrance system itself. So as far as death spirals, does it make things harder? Yes. Now, on that note, I would say it's something I have not mentioned yet is soak rolls. Soak rolls are where you can spend a penny to try to absorb the damage, absorb the wounds, and say, nope, I'm not going to take that wound. I'm just going to spend one of our meta currencies and try to see if I can just take in the wound and not actually feel affected by it. Am I still hit? Yes, but maybe I'm just going to feel it and power through it and keep fighting. And I act like as if that wound is not there, and it's not taken. And it is a lot easier and more important, and just for new players out there, spend your bennies on soak rolls early, because your soak rolls do have your penalties. So it's a lot easier to soak your first wound than it is to soak your third wound, because your third wound is going to have your -2 from your first 2 wounds, whereas your first soak roll doesn't have any penalties yet. So use your soak rolls earlier. So it's kind of a thing there. So how do you avoid the death spiral? I don't think death spirals are necessarily that big of a deal inside Savage Worlds. So that's my little spiel. I know that was a little quicker than usual, and I might have talked a little bit too quickly. I apologize if I did. I want to hear you guys' comments on this. So I'm going to go back through and read through some of your comments real quick. Let's see here. Chris Gordon says, combat is really fast, really fast. Guns work in a way that doesn't break the game, no longer attrition based. All hindrances from a RP level and bennies on a story level. Yeah. So because of the way the wound system works, because of the way the extras work, Savage Worlds combat is really quick, and so that whole entire system for damage makes things much quicker. That's one of the things I liked about. I think what a lot of people loved about 4th edition was that they had the same thing have Savage Worlds has for extras, where any minor character, I'm not sure how they phrased it, but basically an extra in 4th edition, you took one hit and they're gone. You just gotta let them alone. I know people who do something similar even in 5e as well. Let's see here. Jim says, I like how everything is weaker when wounded. It makes more sense. Yeah. One of the things I hate about some of the hit point systems is they talk about how you have a character has 100 hit points and they're down to 1, and they have nothing's wrong with them, right? They have they roll everything exactly the same. And then there's these arguments that say, oh, well, that's because hit points represent your luck or your ability to soak damage, right? And yet every time people describe damage in D&D or any of those hit point games, or healing in those games, it's like, oh, I'm gonna cast heal wounds. It's like, well, if your hit points just represent luck, there's no wounds to heal. They're fine. So which is it? Are they wounded, or this is just your luck being attritioned? And then all of a sudden, one good hit comes in and you're dead. So, yeah. So Kevin says, my biggest issue with the wound system gets a little muddy when someone's shaken already. There's no difference between shaking and shaking with a raise when already shaken. Seems like a waste of raise. So here's how I describe this to people when talking about the wound system, because this does confuse people, and I understand it. And the way that I say it, to make it sound like it makes more sense, is that every raise is a wound, period. 1 raise, 1 wound. 2 raises, 2 wounds. 3 raises, 3 wounds. Period. Right? It's just you got 3 wounds. And to kind of reverse your outlook on things. So I think this has to be how it's presented. It's 1 raise is a wound, 3 raises is 2 wounds, etc. Period. Because what happens when you only get shaken? That's what really sucks. Someone's shaken and you only get a shaken result, that would really suck. Except to say, you know what? Hey, if you shake someone and they're already shaken, you do a wound to them. That's kind of reversing the polarity on things and saying, It's just saying one raise, one wound, 2 raise, 2 wound, 3 raise, 3 wounds. That's just always true. And if you shake someone they're already shaken, you also get to do a wound. That's like kind of reversing, making it cool that like, oh, you got a raise, or sorry, you got a shaken result, and a person's already shaken. That would usually suck, except that the rules say that you get to do a wound. So it's kind of reversing your mindset on that. I think is really helpful, personally. Vinkel mentions some more stuff. What's your Vinkel does mention that vehicle wounds are also a little different. I can't get into vehicle wounds because I don't really think that was like in my purview of something I was going to talk about. But yes, vehicle wounds are a little bit different, but I'm just not going to get into it because that's whole kettle of fish that I did not prepare for. Let's see here. Jam says, I love wounds in general. Me too. I love them. It's my favorite things about Savage Worlds, for sure. Jams also says, one bit with injuries, it's a little strange they have hit locations and called shots. Then when KO'd, they have to roll on a round table. I was going to bring this up. I'm not sure if I may have already. And personally, if you do damage, if you like incapacitate someone on a called shot, I would not have the player, the whoever it is, roll on the hit location, the table for the injury. If there's a called shot, I'm gonna say that's what injured. That's what the injury happens, right? And narrate around that called shot. I think, and while generally speaking, together, the rules is written that says that, I would guess that Clint or Shane over at Pinnacle would say, hey, yeah, if you incapacitate someone that's called shot, that called shot should probably be the injury that happens. So it's kind of like rules is written, rules is intended, rule of cool. I personally if someone did a called shot, and if I did a called shot on a player, I am not gonna make him roll on that called shot table or on that table for the injury. I'm gonna say, nope, you get this one. If it's to the torso, I might say, okay, I'm gonna let you roll like one of those, like because it's like guts, something else. Maybe roll on that, broken guts, something like that. But generally speaking, called shots are going to be that injury because that just makes more sense. Hamster Doom says, one thing about 4E that made feel so heroic is that when you have mooks on the table, they fall down. Yeah, single wound, exactly. Let's see here. Lou Blair says, I love extra special wild cards. So, and that's, yeah, as you should. It's one of the better things about Savage Worlds. I read someone say recently that like extras that are big size or bigger sizes get more wounds. That's not my reading. My personal reading of the rules. My personal reading of the rules is if you take extra takes one wound, they take one when they're dead, unless it matters. You want to roll like a bigger roll, whatever. And if they have the resilient or very resilient edges. I don't like those edges. I just get rid of them, just kind of wipe them away. So not that big a deal to me. But and something to note for those who are not familiar with Savage Worlds, who are for some reason watching this, is that extras also don't get the wild die. So a wild die is a single D6. This is my Rise of the Runelords one. And they roll this in addition to whatever dice they're rolling for their skill, and they take the higher of the two when rolling. So it's just like an extra opportunity to succeed with the wild die, whereas extras do not get that because they're not that important. They don't get to make really cool feats of strength and stuff because they're not that important. As Pierce Sloom says, extras don't matter until they really, really do. Yeah. Let's see here. Little Blair says there's already so much to manage with combat that would be tough to have resilient extras personally. Yeah, I don't want to manage extras. Like I don't even write extras down. I just have them on my board, and then when someone they get taken out, I just remove them from the board. It's like, yeah, cool, you're gone. Not worried anymore. I'm not even gonna worry about you like filling the space or whatever, because I'm not going for a simulation game. I'm just going for some sort of narrative, fun game that we're having a storytelling experience together. So there you go. Let's see here. Moving through here, soldiers, D6 for files. Yeah, okay. John, you were mentioning something about Virtual Death and Have No Way Out, including no one attempting to aid or heal character. I assume there's something there. I'm not sure what you're. I don't know what I was talking about when you send that message. But that does bring us something to talk about, and that's the way wounds are healed in Savage Worlds. So Savage Worlds has this really cool rule called the Golden Hour, which says that wounds can be healed with a healing roll, which takes 10 minutes per wound. And so healing roll and or with the healing power, but they can only be healed in the first hour of them being taken. And after that, it takes like every like week of having medical care. You can roll a vigor roll to get rid of or to get your wounds, get rid of your wounds to heal, right? So there's like this cool like thing, like, hey, and that's a golden roll is a real thing, right? There's a golden hour inside of real life where it says like getting care for person inside the first hour of them taking an injury or anything. That is the most important piece of care that you can give them. So that's why ambulance EMS people are so important, because they give the people the first bit of care before get to the hospital, or whatever. So something to be aware of. Again, takes a healing roll at like minus a healing roll that takes 10 minutes per wound. So if you have 3 wounds, it's going to take the person 30 minutes to make their healing roll. And if they fail, they can't heal those wounds. They can't try again. It's just like those wounds will not be healed. And the way that I like to describe it sometimes is like, maybe you took a wound and it's like, it's a bolt to the shoulder. And it's not like you can't use that shoulder or anything. It's just you have a -1 everything. And maybe because we're going for a very pulpy feel where, all of a sudden you tie a bandage around it and now you're good. That's the way we can describe it. It's like, yes, you do have a hole in your shoulder, but it's fine. You got treated and you're going to keep fighting through it, and you're not going to have that penalty anymore. Because we're a very, because Sagittarius just pulpy like that. Let's see here. Pierce says, in the new adventure I am writing, basically every character is wounded or fatigued almost out from the outset, and tactically managing the negatives and healing, where you can become part of the strategy. That sounds fun, and I've already know a little bit about what's going on in that game, so I'm a little bit concerned and confused. So I'm curious to see how that comes out. Pierce says, I would argue that Sagittarius is still attrition based. It's just packaged in a different way. It's more fun. Yeah, I would say it's not. A lot of people say that the bennies are the attrition system. At the same time, the amount of bennies that people have is completely based on the GM and how much they give out, unless there's a lot of rules around how bennies can be given out, like additional jokers, obviously, Dictator's Wild, things like that. So, yeah. Let's see here. Vangel says Cyberpunk Red had wound penalties as well as it has hit points. Can have damage in combat, and having to dodge on takes time that takes away from the action. Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that, again, I like about Savage Worlds is that it's like the math might take a little bit of time sometimes to figure out. This is why I like having those tables for knowing how much damage I need to do certain wounds and stuff. And there's I'm trying to come up with some tips for people to know the best way to like manage wounds and stuff. Vankel actually came up with something really good. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, for like getting the wound markers for a monster written down ahead of time. So you can just know, oh, you did 23 damage. Cool. That's 3 wounds for this monster. Boom. And kind of doing the reverse for your players. Jim says that's a good way to explain the shaken or on-chain thing. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm glad I help. That is like my number one advice when it comes to explaining the damage thing. When I talk about damage, it's like 1 raise is 1 raise, 2 raise 2. 1 raise is a wound, 2 raises is 2 wounds, etc. If you shake when they're already shaken, that's also a wound. And sometimes people will come like, oh wait, okay, I got a raise and they're already shaken, so do I get 2? It's like, no, you got 1 raise. 1 raise is always 1 wound. It's just like you get a bone. Think of it as more of a bonus when you shake someone when they're already shaken, right? Let's see here. Chris says, how many bennies should I give out to my players if I want a very pulpy heroic player characters? I'm going to say right now, I'm not very good about giving out bennies. I try. The thing that when it comes to bennies, I don't like to give out bennies for feeling, right? For like trying to make sure I get a certain amount of feeling. By the way, the general consensus I've seen is like a 1 benny per hour per player is like the general thing I've seen. I'm not very good at it because I do 2-hour games and I might give out 1 or 2 bennies the whole game. Because personally, what I want to give out bennies for is for players to doing things. Well, one, I should say that I'm not very good at giving out bennies in general. Just I'm a very forgetful person and I forget to do so. But when I do give out bennies, I think about bennies for people doing things that I want to encourage them to do in the future. So taking silly risks, like, oh yeah, that's awesome. You're doing cool things. Playing the game that, in a sense, they'll play the game I want them to play it. That's the kind of thing I want to reward. And one of the things that Matt Colville said a long time ago is the thing the game rewards is the thing the game wants you to do. Well, because we have a meta currency called bennies that players really like. It's like, I'm going to reward you with this because that's what I want you to do. So, yeah. But as Hamster Jim says, yes, the bennies must flow. But that's how I personally feel. Let's see here. Yeah, so we did Lily's part of my game that I ran for the Rights to Spring Madness, which is written by Jam DeFoggy. And they did use up a bunch of bunnies, a bunch of bennies, pretty quickly, all at once, towards the end. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I did not talk about fatigue. That is a true point, Peter. Thank you for bringing that up. So the thing about fatigue is that it does not cause injuries. Fatigue is a thing where you take 1 point of fatigue, which also gives you -1 fatigue. 2 points of fatigue gives you 2, and you can take a 3rd level fatigue and become incapacitated. Certain things will say that this fatigue cannot cause incapacitation, but a lot of them don't. Like the Berserker Edge says that you get fatigue and you just, that's your 3rd fatigue, you're incapacitated. That does not cause wounds, but fatigue and wounds do stack up. So if you have 2 fatigue and you take your 4th wound, you're incapacitated, you're rolling your vigor roll now at -5, which is a pretty big deal, right? So things do stack together and can come together for pretty scarily. Let's see here. Gotcha. Apologies, Peter. There's multiple things you're working on, and I don't know which one you're talking about. Let's see here. Hamster Jim, talk more about what you're talking about. You roll D20, and the higher result, the more injured and fatigued you are. You previously mentioned Shane in his horror game, so can you clarify what you're talking about in that regard, like mechanically? Michael Connor says it doesn't take away from the action; it's just different. Yeah, I would generally agree, and that's one of the reasons I like it. You can keep moving forward. There's no like action, and that's one of the things that a lot of other injury systems kind of do is it makes it into a lot of bookkeeping for injuries. Like, oh, well, okay, my arm is this, so I need to do this instead. Yeah. It's like, no. One of my things I love about Savage Goose is just saying, you had this injury, you're wounded, you have -1 to everything you do. That's it. Just you have -1. Move on. There's a change into what you have to do, and that you have a modifier, but otherwise just move forward. Let's see here. Jam says, same. I'm always forgetting bennies, accidentally stingy. I just tell the players later it's because it's Deadlands and horror, so they. I just tell players I'm honest. I forget, and sometimes, and that's why sometimes I tell my players like, hey, if you think you deserve a benny, or if you think someone else deserves a benny, which is I will consider even more. If you tell me you think someone else deserves a benny for what they did, I am more likely to consider it. In fact, I might just go, yeah, you're right. Here you go, and just move on. So you should. If you think something that one of your other players did was really cool, you should say that to the GM. It's like, hey, that was really cool. Wink, wink. And I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Here you go. Lily Blair says, I think it's tough to remember to pass them out coming from 5e because D&D is so stingy with inspiration. Yeah. A lot of people coming from 5e, inspiration does not come out very often. And this is like stupid thing where you only get 1 inspiration. You can't have multiple inspiration. It's dumb. Just saying. A lot of times I have a GM right now for my D&D game who is pretty good about inspiration. The problem is, one, we forget about inspiration and we forget that we have it. And two, sometimes they'll give it to us and we already have it. It's like, oh, well, never mind then. Like that sucks. It sucks that it's like, oh, I already have inspiration, so I can't get more. It's lame. So, Starlaw says, how will my game master give up bunnies? Yeah, that'd be cool. Chocolate bunny bennies. Ooh, yeah, I feel like some sort of Easter themed game where you give out bennies as like little chocolate rabbits or like chocolate eggs, and those you just eat them every time you want to use them. Perfect. That's a lot of the other things great about bennies is that you can just be like, hey, here's your bennies. They're Skittles or some other candy, and you just eat them when they're gone. Let's see here. I'm trying to keep up with you guys. 7th C first edition or second had Benny dice. You could add to rolls, but if you don't use them, they convert to XP. Savage Worlds originally, I was told, originally Savage Worlds rule was that any bennies you had that you didn't use were converted into experience. And this sounds like what you're describing sounds like a combination of conviction, where you add a D6 to whatever your roll is, and experience. So there's something sounds like a combination of the two. So that's interesting. Let's see here. Hamster Doom says, in Necessary Evil, my character was built to hit and deliver poison, which was fatigue causing and deadly. It was great to take down the big bad who had like 6 wounds and fatigue. Ooh. That's a good question from Lily. Thoughts on wound cap versus no wound cap? Oh boy. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with wound cap is a rule that says that you can never take more than 4 wounds at once. So if some reason you have a monster who just rolls and keeps exploding and exploding and exploding. I had a player once who did, I think, 50 damage to my T-Rex, right? And the wound cap, without the wound cap, that was like 10 wounds, I want to say. Let's go with like 10 wounds. It was at least 5. That's more than 5. The wound cap setting rule says you can never take more than 4. And what that means is like 4 at once. So even if you're at 3 wounds already, you would still take 4 incoming wounds, and meaning you have to soak all 4 of those wounds to not be incapacitated. So you never have to soak more than 4. It is a built-in rule to the Savage Pathfinder game. So if you ever play Savage Pathfinder, this is like there's no setting rules in Savage Pathfinder. They just have like, this is the rule that you play by, and that's the rule in Savage Pathfinder. But in generic Savage Worlds, that is a additional rule that you have to basically decide ahead of time if you want to use or not. And whether or not to use it, I think really depends on the game. If you're going for a gritty game, no, do not use it. Sometimes stuff happens and you get shot in the head and you die. That's just the way it is. Other times, you don't want that kind of thing. You want to be able to soak and have more of a chance to succeed. And that's where things like, for games where like Sleuth Squad, where wounds really shouldn't happen at all. That's where games like that, maybe it should come in handy. And it creates more heroic characters when they can have an opportunity to soak. And it also makes for more epic combats if your dragon can soak the wounds as well as a GM. So it depends on the flavor you're going for. If you want things to be able to be one-shotted, then don't put the rule in place. And if you want things to have more possibilities, more ability to go for longer combats, do include it. So that's my general thoughts on it. Todd DeWitt says, we use the Benny Cup. Treat it as another player that anyone can pull from. There's in the ETU game, there was a ETU game by the wild cards, the live stream. You could there was a pool of rerolls that you could use as well. So other people have done things like that before. So this is from Hamster Doom. Again, I'm talking about the D20 roll for how fatigued you are. So Shane wanted Holler to be hard, so he started the game with everyone injured from a previous combat, so we're able to see how badly. Interesting. So depending on how bad it was would determine if you had wounds or fatigue or other stuff, I assume. But okay. let's see. I'm just gonna look through everything. All these other comments here. Lily says, just in general, running combat in person is so much easier than running it virtually. Well, so I think that depends on the tools you use. And I think it depends on the tools you use and how tech literate people are in general, like how tech literate your players are. I think, yeah. And it depends like how you're running combat and such. So yeah, it just depends. There's a lot of dependencies there. So I'm not going to really comment too much on that. Yes, Bendy's can still ace to overcome the wound cap, but it becomes a lot harder, right? So if you're a wound cap, then you don't have to worry about that as much. So, let's see here. James says, I've definitely noticed that. I think that digital was clunky, but I think it's the better too. So it's so physical with cards and chips, it just works better IRL. Yeah. There's a lot to keep track of. I personally love playing in person. I'm a like in person first kind of person. I don't enjoy playing online as much. There's several reasons for that. One, I think there's like just it's more distracting. Two, there's like this is the reason why I can't play or sorry, I can't listen to like online live actual plays because there's a delay in the talking. There's like always people interrupting each other. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And there's this slight delay that really makes conversation different, right? Or people are pausing because they're waiting for someone else to talk, and then they both talk at the same time. There's a lot of things in Savage Worlds that makes it a little bit difficult. One of the things I'd like to see, if I'm honest, is better tools for running Savage Worlds online. I've tried running some tools myself, like dice rollers, initiative trackers, that are all automated and everything. And there is an initiative tracker on Savage.us, but I personally have some problems with it. It always either resets, and on top of that, there's no player interaction. Like players just get to see what it is; they don't actually get to interact with it on a certain basis. So I think there is definitely a big area in Savage Worlds for us to get better online tools for running games, even if it's not part of a VTT. So yeah. So if you're a developer, I have some ideas. I'm happy to tell you my ideas on how we can make some really cool online tools for Savage Worlds. So just hit me up. I just don't have the coding skills, unfortunately, to really do this. The only code I know is Visual Basic, and that's from 2009 was the last time I took a class in that. So 16 years ago. Yeah. And I am not entirely sure how I would do the code in that way as well. I tried using like AI to help me do some code. I got fairly far, but not really as far as I need to make this any sort of production level thing. So, let's see here. All right, so Liz got some more comments about some other stuff, but we're not going to worry about that right now because I thank you all for your comments. I appreciate our comments about the wound system. Let me know if you think this should be a full-on video about wounds and capacitation. I have an idea for a video on like death, dying, and I don't remember what the third D was. There's a third D there. It was like death, dying, and something else. Injuries. That's not the D though. So yeah, I'm glad you all. Thank you all for commenting and hanging out. I know there's a lot of stuff happening inside of defeat. Yeah, that's a good word. Death, dying, defeat. That might work. So thank you all for hanging out and talking to me about wounds and all your comments and thoughts about the wound system inside Savage Worlds. Hopefully this is helpful to people who aren't familiar with Savage Worlds and knowing how the Savage Worlds system works. Yeah, let me know if you think I should. Dismemberment. It's a very good word. Death, dying, to dismemberment. That's probably the word I'll have to go with. Yeah, if I should make this video. Also, I just want to say thank you all for hanging out. Coming up in the next several weeks, on the 25th, I'll be meeting with Brandon from Star Anvil Studios to talk about Starbreaker, Space Marines. So that's gonna be a little bit later. It's gonna be at 9:00. I'm currently scheduled to. Sorry, that's April 1st, not March 25th. That's April 1st. I'm working with Tracy to talk about Han Cluster. We are thinking March 25th currently, but we will see. I'm waiting to hear back from Tracy on when Tracy's available. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. And then I'm trying to think what this another. Oh, then Lily, who's been in the chat. Thanks for hanging out, Lily. She's a newer GM. She just finished her first campaign. We're going to be doing a video together where we just sit down, have a conversation about her experiences from 5e to Savage Worlds, and her experiences and just what things that she enjoyed, what things she didn't enjoy. So that will be a video that comes out probably sometime in April. Hopefully by the end of April, we'll have that out. And then I'm also be working with Peter on some more TPK 101 videos. If you, again, thank you all for hanging out. And if you do want to support this show, I do it mostly out of just because I enjoy doing it. But if you want to support me in any way, you can always use my affiliate links down below to buy DTRPG stuff, Amazon stuff, whatever. But also, I do have a membership currently. I'd love to hear your guys' ideas for membership tiers and membership options, like things I can kind of give you guys through membership. So let me know. I'm happy to hear that. And also, I currently have a poll in my community tab, my post tab, about Discord servers. I've been playing around with the idea of maybe starting my own Discord server specifically for people who enjoy the Savage Goose. Let me know if you think that would be a good idea, and if not, or another way, let me know any nuances, any questions or comments. Love to hear about it. Jim says, how did you say says now 16 years ago? Trust me, I'm not happy to say it. Like, I'm not happy to say that people born when I was still in high school are now in high school. Like, that's just feels wrong. Okay. So, but yeah, thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate all of the fun and love tonight, and I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Cheers, everyone. Week. It's not the weekend yet. Just have a great week. Hopefully, I'll see you guys Friday for a Solomon Kane unboxing. Cheers.